Welcome to the LDN radio show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose Naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us.
I'd like to introduce our guest, Makiah from the US, who takes LDN, not only for the triad, MCAS, EDS and POTS, but ADHA, binocular vision, lipedema, and lymphedema. So thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So could you tell us your story? When did it all begin?
Ooh, I think this all began in childhood, probably. It was probably just always here. But really, I started feeling off after my second child was born. So after that pregnancy, the postpartum and all of that, I started noticing things, and I actually felt really fatigued during that pregnancy. And so it probably actually started then. And then my gut stuff was sort of messed up, and I started, trying to figure out, why is this happening? What is this? There was lots of bloating and constipation. And, you report all these things to your gynecologist, and they are very much like, oh, that's normal. It's just your hormones need to get back to baseline. And they try to give you, what are those things called? I don't take them anymore. Birth control. I'm like, no, 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 thanks. Because birth control always made me feel off too. And, things just never got back to normal. They just kept fluctuating and being weird. And then I would say after my third pregnancy, which was a difficult pregnancy, and it was different than all the other pregnancies, that probably was a real indication that there was a problem. But I just wasn't really in tune at the time. I was sort of, I don't know, just very disconnected. And after I had my third child, my son, which I had this spontaneous labor, which was also like, odd. It was not normal for me. Now I can tie it back to EDS, and I know why that happened. But he actually passed away, and he was like 23 days old. And, I started going through my normal recovery from postpartum, the things you do, the exercises, the things that you have found to work in the past, and it just wasn't working. And I noticed that my uterus did not go back to normal. And so I went down this path of like, what is this? Why am I bleeding? What's going on with my body? Why am I not healing? Why am I not losing weight? Why am I gaining weight? Why can't I exercise anymore? Why am I being fatigued by regular exercise? And so eventually I did get a diagnosis for endometriosis and adenomyosis. Then I ended up going to a functional medicine doctor because I just wasn't feeling like any of the answers I was getting actually addressed my symptoms. I went to a functional doctor. I did all of the GI mapping and the Dutch test and the SIBO testing, all of those things. And I was diagnosed with insulin-resistant PCOS, adrenal insufficiency, a couple of other things like gut dysbiosis, intestinal methanogen overgrowth. I remember her saying what stood out to me was that there was like my protein was really low. And I was like, okay, it just stood out to me, right? I didn't really have an answer, but it stood out. And I was like, that's weird because I do eat protein, right? And it was just, you see things and they stick, right? So during my pregnancy, I had low MCV levels, and I was like, well, what is that? And, they're like, oh, it's nothing to worry about. So these things that they tell you is nothing to worry about, it starts adding up, and it just, I just felt instinctively like this is an indication of a problem. There's something going on here. So after I saw the functional doctor, I did all the things that, she told me to do. I changed my diet, I did all the protocols, and I still wasn't feeling well. I was still feeling very fatigued and um, having lots of food reactions. And I noticed I would have pain in my neck and shoulders after I ate certain things. And at the time, I knew nothing of histamine. I did not know. I just knew that I had pain after eating food. And it didn't make sense to me that it was in my muscles. So I happened to be listening to a podcast one day on endometriosis. And the person was sharing that she was seeking a diagnosis for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I was listening to all of her symptoms and all of her experience. And I was like, wow, that is like my life story. Like I've it's all, connecting, it's all clicking. And so then I started, binging. I just started going down the rabbit hole, like, what is EDS? What is mast cell activation? What is all of these things? And I was like, I know I have this. I know that this is the missing link. I know this is what's going on. I know this is why I'm not recovering from this pregnancy. And then I started, listening to those podcasts, and I came across I can't think of her name right now, but she does the Bendy Bodies podcast. Dr.
Bluestein.
Yes. So I just went on her Instagram post one day. She was actually posting a thread about seeking a diagnosis and questions to ask and things like that. And so I just said, hey, do you know anyone in LA? And she actually said, hey, check out this woman, Dr. Tina Wang. So I sought that out. I went through her. I went through the whole diagnostic, the clinical presentation, the Beighton score. She actually did a ultrasound of the fascia on my leg. She pointed out some things to me that I had never noticed, even though I noticed a lot of things. So very fascinating and very validating. And she diagnosed me with hypermobile EDS, mast cell activation syndrome, ADHD, which, I've been struggling with for a long time now, and binocular vision. Wow. So that is how I, went from the smallest thing that really was bothering me to the biggest thing, the biggest impact. And apparently there is a connection between endometriosis and EDS.
I didn't know that.
Well, it's being researched, so I can't say that there is, but it makes a lot of sense with, just the presentation or the element of growths, things overgrowing, things being dysregulated and leading to cysts and tissue formation and all of those things. So that's how I got those diagnoses. And I've been going to the EDS clinic at a place called Casa Colina, which is sort of close to where I live. It's about an hour away. And so that is how I got the lymphedema diagnosis.
Okay. I would like to say I really feel for you having lost your son. I'm really sorry. That's not good news. Not good news. So how did you recover after that birth? Did it take you a long time?
I've not recovered. And that was the indication to me, like, without a doubt, there is something wrong here. Because with each of my pregnancies, I did have a little bit of a diastasis, but I always rebounded. I always lost weight. My core was able to come back together. I was able to do exercises and, just, recover. And I was not recovering. I was expanding. My diastasis was not improving. It was getting worse. Come to find out, I have organ prolapse. So my uterus is prolapsed, my cervix is prolapsed, my rectum is prolapsed. And now I understand why I still look pregnant 5 years later. I've not lost any weight. That's probably the lipedema. It's probably lots of things, but I've not rebounded. I've not recovered at all. I'm actually am still exercise intolerant right now. And I did recently start physical therapy, but I'm really just working on stabilizing my immune system, because I've been in this ongoing, constant reactive state probably for like 5 years now.
Must have been difficult looking after your other two children, feeling so unwell.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And you said you'd started LDN. How long ago was that now?
I would say, okay, so it was prescribed to me a while ago, but I just started taking it maybe like 2 months ago.
Okay. So it's very, very early days for that.
Yeah, I can be a little, for some reason, it's very hard for me to like develop a new protocol or a new process. For some reason, I don't know why. I just kind of ease into things. But I have been taking it for a little bit, and it doesn't make me as drowsy as it used to, but I can't really say how it's impacting my system just yet.
So what medications are you taking?
I think that's why. So I'm taking cromolyn, Singulair, Pepsid, loratadine, and I'm taking berberine, and can't think of the name of it, but it's something to, oh my gosh, my brain fog is it's on today. But that's the gist of what I'm taking. So that's kind of why I ease into taking something new, because I can't ever really tell, if I'm taking so many things and I'm not taking it long enough to see how it helps, and then you introduce something new, you can't really identify what is helping what. And so I have kind of reached a plateau with the cromolyn. So that's why I started taking the LDN, because I was like, okay, I see how far this can take me, and I'm still having mild reactions. So maybe if I take this, it'll help with the modulation of the immune system. And, I don't know about the pain, but, I don't know. I just figured I'd start taking it.
Okay. So with everything that you are doing and what you can't do, what would you say is an average day? What does that look like from when you get up till you go to bed?
Um, it's it's rough. Every day I wake up, as soon as I wake up, I am extremely fatigued, and I feel hopeless. Like I feel like I want to do more with my life. I want to expand in so many ways. I want to be more productive, but I feel like I have no energy. And so it makes me feel like, how can I do these things if I'm can barely do my bare minimum, And I feel, I don't want to say useless, but you feel very disempowered, especially compared to how you feel before your illness activates and turns all the way on. All the things that you're capable of, but you're no longer capable of. And you can't explain that to people because they're not feeling it. They're not experiencing it. So I wake up and I start out for a good 30, 40 minutes. I'm feeling extremely fatigued. And then I'm able to get my kids off to school, and then I have to immediately sit down for work. And I'm usually very much struggling to stay focused, to remember what task I'm supposed to be on, to prioritize the task, to gauge how long something is going to take me and how I'm going to actually execute it. Um, I go through this pretty much all month. I might have about 3, 4 days out the month. It's usually the follicular phase where I'm like very focused, very energized. And then I want to get all the things done for everything that I haven't done and that I need to do in that little period of time, which doesn't usually work out. But pretty much every day, I feel like I'm trying to catch up. and it just repeats over and over and over. And that's kind of where I'm at. I will say I'm not having as severe of mast cell reactions, but I'm still having pain, like just widespread body pain. And some new symptoms present. And so you're like, oh, what is this? Did I do something to bring this on? Or is this just, the thing doing the thing?
Okay. All the medication that you're on, has it
Mhm.
helped relieve some of your symptoms?
I would say yes. Yes. So when I first knew something was off, I started doing like acupuncture. I started doing all the, the more holistic, integrative, supportive things. And no one knew I had mast cell activation syndrome um, at the time. And still, I don't know anyone from a Chinese medicine perspective or even a functional medicine perspective in my area who treats these sort of things. And so now I just use it as more of like a stress, um, like a pocket of time to get away and just take care of myself. But nothing was stabilizing my mast cell reactions. I was having constant breakouts of canker sores. I mean, for like a 6-month period. As soon as one round would close, another round was forming, and it was just constant. It got to the point where I couldn't drink water. I was reacting to water. Like anything hit my stomach, and I was reacting. And my body was swelling, and I was puffy, and I had all this fluid, and it was hard to walk, and my dysautonomia was going crazy at the time. Now it's more like I may have a mild reaction. I may not have the neck pain so much. It's not as debilitating like where you have that fever, you get that viral kind of thing going on. And a lot of times I just have to lay down and it's like having like a mini flu for a few days. I don't get that as much, so I'm a little more stable, but I'm still having reactions and I'm very sensitive to the cold. And so right now I'm having, like this ongoing bronchial sinus thing. It's, so there's that too. So that has not stabilized, but the food reactions have very much stabilized.
Mm-hmm. And how does the heat affect you? You said the cold does.
So the heat, I get a lot of constriction in my chest and I'm still trying to figure out what's going on here. There's still something here, but it's very hard to breathe. And I just get really fatigued
Mm-hmm.
and flushed.
Oh dear. You have hopefully a long way to come to get
Yeah.
to the road to good health. And I sincerely hope you find that very soon.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you very much for sharing your story with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
I'm Dr. Leonard Weinstock, a guy who's been prescribing LDN since 2005, and I've seen the wonders. And I keep on seeing them, especially in hard to diagnose conditions. They're not that hard to do, but once you know about mast cell activation syndrome, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you'll find that 17% of your friends or relatives have one or more of these conditions, and you can help them. We're making a documentary to wake up the medical community, to educate the population, but we need funding. So please fund whatever you can afford, no matter how little, www.mcasfund.com. That's mcasfund.com.
Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, linda @ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.